Hurrying out of Endo Electronics, Stanley dialed up Totino as he ran along. There's the Totino jump. I won't do it just yet. I want to see the bad end from Stanley's perspective, because I think we need to jump to Totino, obviously, because of the whole Canaan thingy. Listen carefully, your life may depend on it, he said as soon as Totino picked up. He knew that the detective wouldn't be able to respond openly, since Alphard was right there with him. On the spur of the moment, Stanley devised a simple code for how he should answer yes or no. He told Totino to respond with "that's right" to mean yes, and "will do" to mean no. There was no time for anything more complex. Right now, Stanley just needed to stop Alphard from getting into the lab. He quickly explained his suspicions about Canaan. Totino sounded distinctly unnerved. At any rate, Stanley said, you need to find a way to turn back without her realizing what's going on. Oh, will do means no, Totino replied. So he was going to head to the laboratory despite Stanley's instructions. Saving Maria is a top priority, isn't it? That's right, means yes. The detective's affirmation was firm. Alright then, guess I'll have to head that way myself. In the meantime, do not let her inside that lab. That's right, yes. Fuck, I love this. Things are heating up, I love it. Totino was no match for Alphard. If she figured out what was going on, she'd probably kill him on the spot. So she's not only a criminal mastermind, she's also fit, and she looks beautiful as hell. Man, she won the fucking lottery, didn't she? Reassurance or encouragement would be meaningless right now. Instead, Stanley left Totino with one final warning. If it comes down to it, just shoot her. If you hesitate for a moment, she'll have you dead. Find some way to stall until I get there. If she realizes we're onto her, you're done for. Just keep Maria safe. That's your job. Ah. The game is all about saving the individual rather than everyone, right? And I think shooting her is bad, because I think she has a dead man's trigger on her, which is why the bomb goes off. So we're gonna go with just keep Maria safe. That's your job. If that's alright with you guys. Totino hung up without saying anything. How does this happen? Fuck me, that's such a chaos. The area around Dogensaku was in disarray. The government had declared a state of high alert, and the people on the street were milling around uneasily, unsure just what was going on. Modern-day Japan lacks both the infrastructure and the legal framework to properly deal with a large-scale bioterrorist threat. Coordination between the police, Japan's self-defense force, health centers, and so forth would be a monumental task. In all likelihood, if a bioweapon was ever unleashed there, the target site would fall into chaos. The main roads had been blocked off and automobiles and motorcycles were at a standstill. Some vehicles had overturned on the curb in an apparent attempt to circumvent the blockade. Any moment now, Kano's team would be putting their plan into action at the Scramble. Stanley wasn't sure who they might have gotten to help, but Kano was certain to put them to good use. Please stay safe. Don't you dare die on me. Man, he has a really man boner for Kano, doesn't he? Stanley prayed silently as he darted underneath the railway overpass. I guess it's a bro boner, not a man boner. And bro boners are fine. Honestly, all boners are okay. He made it to his car, why did I just say that? Still parked on roadside and, fortunately, beyond the blocked off area. Jumping in, he sped off towards the laboratory. How does he plan to get there? In time. As he drove along, Stanley again tried to deduce Alphard's plan of action. If Alphard herself was on the way to the lab now, then what was the objective of the fake who'd been sent to the Scramble? A call came in from Totino. Ooh, juicy. Stanley here. Oh, wait, Stanley here. He picked up quickly, but as he did, he wondered. Why was Totino calling him? Alphard was right there. There was no way the detective should be risking a phone call. What's going on? Totino said nothing. Stanley repeated the question. Still, Totino did not reply. Stanley's apprehension spread like a droplet of ink in water. Hey, has something happened? Hey, answer me. The call cut out. Stanley hurriedly dialed Totino's number, but he couldn't get through. Something had gone badly wrong, he was sure of it. Had he been too arrogant in thinking that he might be a match for Alphard? His worries turned to the team and the Scramble. What if they had walked into a trap? Figuring that it would be too dangerous to call Kano in the midst of the negotiations, Stanley instead dialed up a Chi. Another jump. Interesting. Mr. Stanley? What's going on? To Stanley's relief, it sounded like things down at the Scramble had gone well enough, so he asked Achi to put him on the phone with Kano. Yeah, give me a sec, the young man said. Detective! Stanley could hear Achi shouting on the other end. The bomb is about to go off. I've got Stanley on the line. He said that Detective Totino... Boom! There was a sudden tremendous boom, and then the call cut out. Stanley's jaw dropped. He felt his mind emptied out by despair. He opened his mouth, but he couldn't even bring himself to scream. All he could do was curse inwardly, again and again. Stanley slammed his fist into the steering wheel as hard as he could. Then he did it again and again, and again and again and again. He didn't stop even when his fists were marred with blood. Bad end. Number 81. Call cut short. I guess jumping to Achi would achieve nothing, right? So we're gonna jump to Totino. Wait, where was it? I guess it's this one. Let's jump to Totino. Maybe the warning was wrong. Who knows? Oh, whoops. We can jump. Amazing, 20 minutes earlier even. I guess to clear out the keep out. So now with the new information we have, fuck me, it sets everything in a new light, right? Once they'd made it past Shibuya Station, the roads were relatively clear. They ought to make it to the lab in no time. The phone rang again. It was Stanley. What's going on? He asked the American. Listen carefully, your life may depend on it. I'm going to ask you some questions. If the answer is yes, say, that's right. If it's no, reply with will do. For a moment, Totino was bewildered. From the urgency in Stanley's voice, however, he realized that it was some kind of emergency. That's right, he said after a moment's thought. That ought to let Stanley know that he understood the code. Is Kanan with you right now? That's right. That Kanan is an imposter. Totino gripped his phone more tightly, hoping it would stop the trembling in his hand. It's her, Stanley said. She's Alphard. The detective had to stifle a gasp of alarm. I don't have time to fill you in on the details, but I've got some pretty incontrovertible evidence. You need to turn back, now. Totino struggled to come to terms with what he'd just heard. He glanced at Kanan through the rear-view mirror. She was holding Maria tightly in her arms. Was this really all an act on her part? And if so, why? There was only one possible reason. If Kanan really was Alphard, then she had only one goal. She was pretending to help Maria in order to get into the lab, where she would be able to steal the antiviral. But wait, hold on. Kanan was Maria's friend, wasn't she? Hitomi had said as much herself. Kanan is my sister's friend. Maria certainly knew what her own friend looked like. And since it was obvious that Maria might be present, it didn't make sense for a clever imposter to pretend to be Kanan. Or did it? When Kanan showed up on the roof of South Hill, making her surprise attack on Totino, Maria had taken off down the staircase without ever looking back. And when she turned up at the Endo Electronics workroom, Maria had already collapsed and fallen unconscious. Totino felt a chill spreading through his body. Wow, it was foreshadowed. Like this, amazing. As far as he knew, Maria had never actually seen the girl who was now sitting in the back seat. But then, what about Hitomi? Shouldn't she have known what Kanan looked like? Totino tried to remember just what Hitomi had said. Kanan is my sister's friend. I just met her for the first time today. If they'd never met each other before today, then maybe Hitomi didn't know what the real Kanan looked like. That was the only explanation that made sense. Maybe Osawa knows. I guess he doesn't. He never really cared for his daughters. Hey, Totino, are you still with me? Stanley sounded like he was on the verge of panic. At any rate, you need to find a way to turn back without her realizing what's going on. Even if Kanan really was Alphard, Totino had to keep heading towards that lab. He went over the coded response in his head. Yes was, that's right. No was, will do. Will do, he said. Saving Maria is your top priority, isn't it? That's right, Totino affirmed. Alright then, guess I'll have to head that way myself. In the meantime, do not let her inside that lab. That's right. Totino hung up. I guess we don't learn what the last phrase was from this perspective. So, fuck me. I just can't look at her the same way again. Who was that? Kanan asked. Totino felt his heart skip a beat. Yeah, me too. It was Kuze, that cop from earlier. He tried to keep his voice as level as possible. He was worried about us and wanted to check up. Ah, okay, Kanan muttered, sounding disinterested. Totino could only hope she hadn't guessed the truth. It felt like the spectre of death himself was breathing down his neck. What about the tattoo, though? She has a tattoo on her arm. Oh, similar to the other guys. Right? They all had tattoos. Fuck, maybe I should have noticed earlier. At last, the minivan arrived at Koshi Pharmaceutical. Totino pulled up at the front gate and got out of the vehicle. Off to one side of the entrance was an intercom for contacting the security room. I'm assuming you've already heard the details from the director. Totino barked into the intercom. Open up. We haven't heard anything from Director Ozawa, the security guard spat back. And moreover, the laboratory is currently on lockdown. I'm sorry, but not even Director Ozawa is allowed inside. That's ridiculous. Totino scowled at the intercom in frustration. Then a car came racing towards him along the street. Is it Ozawa? Oh yeah, it is. The sound of screeching brakes filled the air as the vehicle skidded to a halt, and then Kenji Ozawa jumped out from the driver's seat. Maria! Oh, wait, it's Ozawa. It's Maria! Ozawa rushed over to Totino, then to Maria, where she lay in the minivan. He looked carefully at his daughter's face. Oh, thank goodness. She still hasn't gone symptomatic. Mr. Ozawa, why aren't people being allowed into the laboratory? Ozawa tilted his head. They're not. Totino explained what the guard had said. That's ridiculous. Ozawa immediately called the security guard on the intercom. He got the same story. You've got to be kidding me, Ozawa raged. I'm the lab director here. But the security guard wasn't hearing it. I'm sorry, sir. These orders come from Mr. Makino. No. So am I just supposed to sit out here and watch my daughter die? And be infected with the UR virus as well? Seemed to have forgotten about this. Totino racked his brain for other ideas. Maybe they'd have to climb the gate and break their way in. Then, over the intercom, they heard the sound of a phone ringing in the security room. The security guard answered it without muting the intercom speaker. His voice was faintly audible. He sounded rather deferential. Who in the world could he be talking to? Before Totino could muse further, the gate suddenly opened. Who did this now? Kuze? Makino? Huh? Why? Totino and Ozawa looked at one another in surprise. I have a message for Director Ozawa from Mr. Makino, the security guard said. From Makino? Ozawa huddled over the intercom and had a brief Sotobotse? Fuck me. What does this mean? Exchange with the guard. This is a weird expression. It's foreign, I guess. What was that all about? Totino asked. It would seem that my wife was able to pull some strings for us. After Ozawa left home, I had a change of heart. Even if it meant losing everything, she decided she wanted to save Maria's life. Good job, I. Although Maria was not Ai's real daughter, it turned out that the time they'd spent living together had sowed the first seeds of a familial bond. Ozawa smiled uncomfortably. Totino didn't have time to wonder what that might mean. Has that lock been open for us as well? He asked. The smile disappeared from Ozawa's face. No, she wasn't able to do anything about the final layer of security. I see. Well, let's regroup inside for now. Very well, Ozawa said. By the way, who's going to be hacking the password? I am, Kanan replied. Ah, so you're Kanan. We should get you to the laboratory then. Ozawa began to lead the way inside. Kanan followed. Fuck, Look at Totino. If Kanan really was Alphard, Totino couldn't let her into that lab. But without getting that lock open, there was no way of getting Maria the antiviral she needed to survive. What was the right call? Should he still pretend to be in the dark and let Kanan try to hack the password? Who was going to have to let her into the lab? They couldn't go anywhere until Stanley got here. Let's let her have her way for now. Totino had made up his mind. Is something the matter? Osawa asked worriedly. No, it's nothing. Then if you would be so kind. Osawa led the way. Kanan and Totino followed him towards the storage facility. Oh, damn. It took about 20 seconds for the elevator to reach the first basement level. The biohazard storage area was evidently fairly deep underground. The doors opened to reveal a long, straight corridor. There was a door at the far end, with a device at one side for checking IDs. Kanan approached the device, setting the laptop she'd borrowed from the security room on the floor in front of it. She affixed a scrap of paper with Kenji Ozawa's password written on it to one side of the monitor. Then she connected a series of cables to both the laptop and the device. Totino kept his hand on his holster as he watched her work. Kanan began to slowly tap away at the keyboard. The screen displayed a series of numeric values that changed with each keystroke. She checked the changes carefully, timing the movements of her fingers according to some formula. The device let out a warning sound, and the display lit up. Incorrect password. The input had been rejected. Was this really going to work? Totino felt his impatience growing. Ozawa's face showed a similar unease. Kanan turned to look at them. How many failed attempts are we allowed? 2, I believe, Ozawa answered. After a third failed attempt, the storage area is locked down and can't be reopened without input from the full board of directors. Wouldn't they just be able to break in, or is this thing so heavily guarded that steel doors and shutters would come down immediately? Kanan had already resumed typing before he finished speaking. There's a very slight difference in power consumption from the device when it processes a correct password compared to an incorrect one. There's a minuscule difference in the time it takes to run the process as well. If I can analyze those and compare them. Kanan's voice trailed off. She continued working. There was another warning sound. A second failed attempt. A single bead of sweat ran down Totino's forehead. But Kanan didn't so much as bat an eyelash. I see. Her face remained full of confidence. It won't be a problem, she assured them. This isn't my first time with this type of mechanism. Slowly, one at a time, Kanan pressed key after key while keeping her eyes on the laptop screen. With each keystroke, a waveform at the top of the screen, looking almost like an echocardiogram readout, wobbled slightly. The laptop let out a tiny sound. A sequence of 10 characters appeared on the screen and Kanan read them off. Totino jotted them down in his notebook, then headed over to the scanner to enter the twin passwords for Ozawa and Tanaka. What's the password? I mean... Oh fuck, it only just dawned on me, but Kanan wanting to speak to fucking fake Alphard makes sense. She could just tell him, okay, blow yourself up, I'm done. She doesn't have any bargaining chips at all, fuck me, it all makes sense. Anyway, she doesn't even need the fucking password. Why did we get the password with Kano now? The door opened. Kanan let out a sigh of relief. Ozawa gathered up Maria and headed into the storage area. Get out. As soon as Ozawa and his daughter were out of view, Totino drew his pistol. Kanan arched an eyebrow. What do you think you're doing? Just get out of here. Totino pointed the barrel of his gun at Kanan's face. What? And she just does it? Silently she did as she was told, turning and walking towards the elevator. She's gonna fuck him up. He followed a few paces behind. She gave no hint of resistance. Now Totino needed to let Stanley know that they'd successfully opened the laboratory door. And this is where she fucks him up. I know. We went as far in Stanley's route. He pulled out his cell phone as he followed her into the elevator. As soon as he did, Kanan pressed herself flush against the wall. A sudden explosion from within the corridor sent Totino careening off balance. He slammed into the elevator wall. Then, as he lay in a daze, the elevator doors drew slowly closed and a cab began to rise upward. Totino could tell that the impact had broken several of his ribs. Blood rose up from his throat and filled the inside of his mouth. How did she know this was gonna happen? He felt his grip on consciousness fading, but he managed to flip open his cell phone. Stanley, please, pick up. He jabbed his thumb hard on the call button. Stanley here. What's going on? Hey, has something happened? Hey, answer me. But it was too late for Totino even to hear Stanley's voice. Bad End number 84. A wordless warning.